This is now happening. It's not even in the future. It's happening. I was just a few weeks ago at a conference at the Institute for Advanced Theology at Bard College, which was chaired by the legendary Judaic scholar Jacob Neusner, and this was on the Golden Rule and religions around the world. Just tremendous scholarship, and so there we all were, and I was invited to the table along with a primatologist colleague, Christopher Baum. We're right there in the Institute for Advanced Theology, and we were having the greatest time. Although Jacob Neusner couldn't come to my talk because he had an audience with the Pope. And that was the best excuse I've ever heard for somebody who needed to skip out of the Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about human potential. Many people, including many humanists, cherish a belief in the human capacity for change, both as individuals and societies. Now, evolution is all about change, and yet, strangely enough, it is often equated with an incapacity for change. For many people, if you hear the word evolution, they hear genetic determinism. So the reasoning goes, our behaviors are caused by our genes can't change, at least over the time scales that matter for human welfare, therefore our behaviors can't change. And so this denial of the human potential, this prospect, basically, that evolution means that we're stuck with our behaviors. Okay, we're stuck with things the way they are. That is just as threatening as a denial of the existence of God for many people. So let's see what we can do with the subject of human potential. I think that this metaphor with the immune system is tremendously instructive. So let me just spend a minute to develop it with care. So what is the immune system? It's something that evolved by genetic evolution to fight disease organisms, as we all know. It is mind-bogglingly complex and sophisticated. If you've ever had a course in immunology, you know that it is just amazingly sophisticated as a set of mechanisms. And its centerpiece is a fast-paced process of antibody evolution. Okay, an open-ended process. So it's the random formation of antibodies and the selection of those that successfully bind to antigens. And what this means is, let me see if that's at my next. Okay, so my colleague Henry Plotkin in England calls this a Darwin machine. It's a very interesting phrase, and both words are important. So the Darwin word means that this is a fast-paced process of evolution built by the slow-paced process of genetic evolution. The Darwin part means that it's open-ended, capable of deriving new solutions to new problems, even those never encountered in the past. So if a disease organism came to Earth from outer space on an asteroid, on a meteor, it's pretty likely that our immune system could take care of it. It doesn't matter that it would never existed on the face of the Earth, and that's because the process of the antibody formation is a genuine evolutionary process in its own right. Random variation and selective retention. Random variation and selective retention. The machine part is that this could never operate and could never be guided to biologically adaptive outcomes without an elaborate infrastructure, architecture that evolved by genetic evolution. Okay, so we need to have a system for ensuring that this evolutionary process is guided to biologically adaptive outcomes. And this is how we should be thinking about psychological and cultural processes, these fast-paced processes. Open-ended, capable of evolving new solutions to new problems, that's the Darwin part, but requires an elaborate psychological architecture in order for that to happen. And that's what we're only beginning to understand. To understand our innate psychology, basically, as something which is built and designed to facilitate this open-ended process so that we can indeed do things in the future, even though we've never done them in the past. So far from denying the human capacity to change, it turns out that evolutionary theory is essential for understanding our capacity for change. If anyone said that we could understand the immune system without needing to understand evolution, that would be absurd. And yet all the time you get people who live on the basis of our faith in our capacity for change, and yet they don't think we need to know about evolution, and that is equally as absurd. So once again, we've taken something which was before was threatening, and now has become an essential tool for understanding exactly how we can change. So in my book, I have a chapter called How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Genetic Determinism, in which I conclude evolution is inherently about organisms responding to environmental change. Only by the strangest of secondary assumptions can it be interpreted as denying the capacity for change. Okay, so to sum up here, and I only have about 5 minutes left because I want to leave time for questions. Evolutionary theory does not undermine morality or human potential, unifies the study of humanity compared to the comparable to the unification of the biological sciences. And if you're an intellectual, it doesn't get any more exciting than this. What could be more exciting than to have this same kind of transcendent knowledge about all things human that we now take for granted in the biological sciences? But now here's our new question. Can it be used to improve human welfare in a practical sense? And this is why when Jerry and I were thinking in abstract general terms about let's create an evolutionary think tank, we said let's come up with a particular topic which we can use as a proof of concept, so that if we can do it for this, then we can do it for many other topics as well. And there's a paradox here, because if we take something like early childhood education, manifestly important, who would say that it's not important to educate our children well? An abundance of, that all of us want to do well by our children and the children of others. Tons of scientific. It's not as if this hasn't been studied scientifically, so why does it work so poorly? And how can it be, it seems too good to be true, that you can take this problem everyone's been working on, wants to solve so much. How is it possible that approaching this from an evolutionary perspective can actually say something new, basically, provide new solutions to old problems? So I'm going to try to show you, based on the research that we've done so far, how this is actually possible, okay, in just a few minutes. Okay, so I said earlier that this is not fringe science or future science, but already in progress. Once we decided on this topic, and I got to work finding colleagues who work in this area, we identified 8 authorities in child development and education who are outstanding credentials, already at the top of their fields, and are working on this, have already discovered evolution for themselves, just like those authors of the Behavioral and Brain Sciences article that I talked about. Everyone we contacted agreed to take part, 100% acceptance rate. So this workshop is not a matter of starting from scratch, but rather facilitating and applying ideas that have already been developed by some of the best and the brightest and most highly qualified experts. So I'm just going to flash through some of these participants just to show you just how distinguished they are. Daniel Birch is currently Associate Dean at the University of Virginia School of Education, and formerly he was Associate Chief of the Child Development and Behavior Branch at the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development. So he's way up in the bureaucratic hierarchy. Tony Bigland, Senior Scientist at Oregon Research Institute and past President of the Society for Prevention Research. And the whole field of prevention research is very relevant to this. David Borkland is in Florida at Florida Atlantic University, an authority on cognitive development and this field of evolutionary developmental psychology. Just as there's a new field of evolutionary religious studies, there's a new field of evolutionary developmental psychology. Bruce Ellis is an authority on gene-environment interactions during development. And of course, we really need to know about gene-environment interactions. Based on your genetic background, you can either be very resilient to adversity or you can be very susceptible to adversity. And so this is a part of the piece of the problem.